All right, we've officially come to the end of the 2024-2025 college football season, and we have crowned a national champion in the Ohio State Buckeyes. But how do we get here? I'm going to talk about that and more in this video. I don't know how long it's going to go, but stay with me as we kind of break down the game and how we got here. Essentially, Ohio State was the best team in the country, plain and simple. That's why this wasn't too frustrating for me to watch, even as someone who really does not like Ohio State. I could see this coming a mile away, especially once we got into the playoffs. And we saw what they did to Tennessee. We saw what they did to Oregon. We saw what they did to Texas. That one was a little bit closer, but basically we knew that whoever won this side of the bracket was going to win the whole thing. At least that's how I felt about it, unless it was Georgia. I'm a little bit, biased towards Georgia, obviously, but I do think that Georgia was the best team on that side of the bracket. I still believe that, even though they lost to Notre Dame. But I still don't think that version of Georgia was going to beat this version of Ohio State. Once I saw that Ohio State had put it all together, when we got to the playoffs, I knew that there really wasn't any other team that could compete against them. The one chance they had was, I think, Oregon was when I thought it was like, okay, maybe Oregon is good enough to beat them, but then we saw that they weren't either. So, it was not shocking to me, at least last week, when I saw this game and I saw the line on this game that Ohio State won it. I predicted it, but so did everyone else. I mean, 8.5 points. You're probably going to win the game if you're favored by 8.5 points. Not always, but in this case, there was a reason they were favored by that much. And I felt like they were going to win it by more than that, which they did. So let's go ahead and take it back to the regular season. Ohio State had a pretty decent season, but they lost to Michigan, which was the big game that they were supposed to win. They lost it. And everyone after that game was wondering, what Ohio State was. Were they fraudulent? How were they going to look going into this playoff system? Were they going to be shot out of a cannon after beating Michigan, or after losing to Michigan, or were they going to just fall flat and in that locker room have problems? Well, we've got the answer to that question. Losing to Michigan, I feel like, ignited them to be a version of themselves that we had not seen all year. They performed better in this playoff system than they had all season. Yes, they won almost all of their games, but in those games in the regular season, they easily, you can easily see the flaws in that team. They had not passed super well. They had a slow start. They did not look like they were a national championship caliber team, but once they got to the playoffs, they put it all together, and they looked like the only elite team we had left in the country. It wasn't super hard to see coming, but I actually want to take you back to the preseason. I actually predicted Ohio State would win the national championship game in the preseason before we had any games on the table. So, once I started the season, I kind of weaned off of that. But if you look at my first ranking, I had Ohio State as, number one. I talked several times about how I felt like Ohio State was going to win the national championship game. And I did think it was going to be against Texas or Georgia. Ended up not being either of them, but they did play all in the playoffs. So I think I did pretty good with that prediction. But let's go ahead and talk about the game itself, the actual championship game and what we got. So starting off, this game was actually really good for Notre Dame. They had a really, really long drive that killed a lot of time. I believe it was like 10 minutes of the first quarter that Notre Dame had under their belts, and they scored a touchdown. So it was literally the perfect drive, but Riley Leonard looked super tired. It looked like he was getting picked up every single play by his lineman. And, I heard that he threw up in the commercial break after that first drive. So definitely wore him out right at the beginning of the game. But the problem for Notre Dame all season has been that they can't really pass the ball super well. And that, I think, showed up pretty significantly here in the championship game. They did throw the ball when they needed to at the end, but it still wasn't enough to give them a win or put them in this game. Really, this game felt like Ohio State had control the whole time. And I know that Notre Dame has been praised a lot for their defense, but I really don't think their defense has gone up against an offense that good all season, which I think played out here. I kind of was thinking that Notre Dame's defense might have been overrated, and then they went to play, Georgia. Then I started to be like, maybe they are pretty good, but then now that I've seen what happened in the national championship game, I think that maybe Georgia's offense just wasn't, that great. Like, they've had struggles all season, so it's not super surprising to me that their offense wasn't lighting Notre Dame's defense up. But Notre Dame's defense did not look that good in this game. Ohio State lit them up on the ground, through the air. It was, whatever Ohio State wanted to do, they did. I think, I could be wrong on this number, but I think Will Howard went 13 for 13 on his first, 13 throws. I think he made 100% completion on all of those. which is crazy. And I think he ended up with a very, very high completion percentage. He ran the ball. Judkins ran the ball. Trayvon Henderson ran the ball very well. Basically, the only reason Notre Dame had the ability to come back in this game was because Ohio State started to play conservatively. And then as soon as Ohio State needed to turn it on and throw a pass, they did a big throw that put them into field goal range to basically win the game. So I don't think this game was ever in question. That first drive looked good for Notre Dame, but at the end of the day, Notre Dame was not as good of a team as Ohio State. They were not going to win the game their way. If they wanted to win, they would have had to play really risky and throw a lot or try something different. They just were not going to win this game being Notre Dame. They're not as physical of a team as Ohio State. They don't have the weapons that Ohio State has. They don't have the staff that Ohio State has, I don't believe. Ohio State overall, just an incredible team this year, and I hate saying that because, like I said, I don't like Ohio State, but they really were the best team in the country, definitely better than Notre Dame, a Notre Dame team that I don't even think was the second best or third best or fourth best team in the country, but they were put on that side of the bracket with all the teams that were probably not as good as the rest of the other side of the bracket. I think Oregon is better than Notre Dame. I think Texas is better than Notre Dame. I think Tennessee is better than Notre Dame. So all the teams that Ohio State had to play to get to the national championship game, I felt like were better than Notre Dame. So I thought this game was just a cleanup game. I said that in my prediction video. This game was just like as long as you don't mess up, you don't shoot yourself in the foot, you have the national championship game in your possession. And that's what happened. They really just controlled the game. This is a big win for Ryan Day and for the Ohio State team. They needed this. Ryan Day definitely needed this. I heard a lot of Ohio State fans put a lot of pressure on him after losing the Michigan game for the third year in a row. And they're like, hey, we might want to fire this guy because he can't get it done. I don't think they're going to be firing him now after winning a national championship game. Now, I have heard some Ohio State fans that still want him fired. I don't understand that. I know the standard's different there. I think that's ridiculous after seeing what they just did. Now, it is fair. They're going to lose a lot of those players going into next season. So we'll see what their team looks like next year. But, we've seen that they can do it. Ryan Day can win a national championship game. He can win the big games. Can he beat Michigan? Jury's still out on that. He hasn't done it since he's been there. At least I don't think he has. So we'll see. But, if you lose to Michigan and you win a national championship game, that's up to Ohio State fans to decide if that's good enough. Is that good enough for you guys? But yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about the statistics of this game because I don't really think it mattered what the statistics were because I think that, like I said, Ohio State could have won this game in whichever way they wanted to win it. If they wanted to run the ball a lot, they were going to win it that way. If they wanted to pass the ball, they were going to win it that way. If they wanted to win it in a defensive battle, they were going to win it that way. There was no way unless Notre Dame played some ridiculously, high risk, high reward scenario, didn't have to really face many of those risks, and Ohio State shot themselves in the foot by throwing interceptions, stuff like that. That's the only path Notre Dame had in this game, and that just didn't happen. They did force a turnover. There was also another turnover that could have happened. That interception at the beginning of the game, they could have been an interception, but then the receiver ended up, getting the ball out of there. So there realistically could have been 2 turnovers. Still wouldn't have been enough, I don't think. The game score did look closer than it really was. Notre Dame did kind of come back, I guess, towards the end, but I think everyone watching knew they weren't going to win the game. So that's pretty much all I have. It was a crazy season. We got our first 12-team playoff system. I think there's a lot that needs to be changed, a lot that needs to be fixed about that. I have been hearing that there's a lot of things changing about, different, rules and stuff about the game. We'll see how it goes, going into next season and how the seeding works next season and what the teams look like next season. I'm really excited. Sad to, this is the end of this season because I love college football so much. I love covering college football so much. And it's going to be a little bit different. I have to figure out what I'm going to do during the off season to kind of put more content out there for you guys. I think my next videos are going to be basically taking a look at the predictions I had in the preseason for each conference. If you guys did watch those videos, I basically made a power ranking system for every single team in every conference and from top to bottom. And you guys can check those out on this channel and see how I did. I'm going to be talking about those in my future videos and kind of seeing, was I accurate on certain conferences, not accurate on certain conferences, certain teams. I will tell you, Ohio State I predicted as the best team in the Big Ten. Not super surprising. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys. It's been a great season. I really appreciate for those of you who did watch all my videos or some of my videos this season. Been, really, really awesome to get at least some support. I really didn't expect this channel to get any viewers at all, but I really appreciate those of you who actually have put the time in to watch me and see this channel and, just listen, because like, I love doing this. I really, really love doing this, and I hope I can continue to do it. So yeah, peace.